Hi everyone, welcome back to our next video. Today we want to talk to you about karma, the idea that what goes around comes around. And so that can be, we think of it as a religious idea, and it is. It's basically associated with Eastern religions. Nearly all the Eastern religions have karma and reincarnation linked together. It's also a very mainstream idea. You know, it's Christian, the Christianity talks about, heaven and hell as punishment and reward for what you've done and what you've believed. Did you accept Jesus as your Savior in the next life? And so it's a kind of a universal idea. In fact, I looked up a statistic, and 84% of the world's population, if you ask them, do you believe that what goes around comes around? 84% said yes. If you use the word karma instead of that phrase, what goes around comes around, it drops down to around 60%, but still a very commonly held belief. And I think it says a lot to us about our attitude towards life. So we specifically want to talk about the phrase karma is a no. You've heard someone say that, maybe you've even said that. Someone does something wrong to you and you think karma is a and there's an attitude there that comes out in that statement, in a feeling of anger and punishment. And is that my worldview? And how is that worldview affecting me? Autumn, we're talking about, is karma? What do you think?
Well, I think it certainly can be, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, when I break down the definition of karma, I think it ultimately means a choice I made caused harm to another. If a choice I made did cause harm to another, then karma's that idea that I will then experience some kind of reciprocal harm as a means to learn, essentially. And so karma might be a bitch, but it can also potentially be tough love, maybe.
Well, there's been a lot of scientific study done on humans and their attitude towards fairness and justice. And it turns out it is a very innately human thing. We are born, innate means we are born with it. I think of one psychology social experiment they did with the children. And the experimenters put on a puppet show with different puppets. And so one puppet wasn't fair. Then they let the children play with the puppets. And none of the children would play with the unfair puppet. They were innately rejecting of unfairness. That we're born with that. You can't get away from it.
I think it's so fascinating that researchers have seen this demonstrated in little kids.
Yeah, right from birth. As soon as they're able to cognitively understand what's going on.
That's fascinating. And I feel like that says a lot about the evolutionary benefit of fairness. And I'm such a stickler with definitions because sometimes without having like a really clearly defined idea, I think we might be unintentionally talking past each other. And so whenever I think of what does fair mean, I think fair means that one person's will isn't going to have utter dominance and that there's going to be sort of an equitable distribution of will. How would you describe fairness?
I guess the simplest way to define fairness is treating others the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And so this one puppet was not treating others the way they wanted to be treated. I think that is really the essence of all world religions and spiritual systems, is treat each other with respect and kindness and courtesy. Treat them the way you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. You ask, why don't we treat each other fairly?
Yeah.
It's because the ego gets involved and says, I want that.
Yes.
That's my favorite. I want that. And even though you should have it, I'm going to take it.
Right. Yeah. So there's like an inherent entitlement. I want and I should have.
Right.
But then I think there's a really interesting question kind of beyond psychology, which is how the different wisdom traditions view karma.
In the Eastern world, we have the idea of reincarnation, and that you live your life, and that at the end of life, there is a judgment of some kind. However, most wisdom traditions end up with a judgment at the end of life, and then some kind of post-life where there is reward or punishment. In Christianity, it's heaven or hell, and in the Eastern thought, it's reincarnation.
One of the things that I think is we are here to learn. It takes time to learn, and it takes experience to learn. And that's where I think of karma. So, for example, if something is just told to me, I'm not really going to learn it until I experience it. And then with karma, whenever I think about karma, particularly in like, say, Eastern traditions, it really is cause and effect. And even like bringing that, bridging that with some of the more psychological beliefs, it's data and feedback for learning. And so I think karma in many ways is nature's way of saying, here's how you're learning. You're learning through your pain. You're learning through your suffering. Two traditions that really captured my attention with the topic of karma are Vipassana Buddhism and Taoism. And there's some overlap there. In Vipassana Buddhism, the Buddha would say, if I take an action with the underlying motive being greed, I want something for myself, aversion, I do not want this for myself, or delusion, just lacking kind of awareness and wisdom, I will suffer. And again, suffering not being punishment, just suffering being the consequence. But if I take an action rooted in generosity, love, and wisdom, there will be non-suffering. So not even necessarily happiness, but just non-suffering. And I really like that idea because it allows space for learning. It allows space for grace. And the other thought I really like is the topic of Wu Wei in Taoism. When we are in harmony with the flow of the way things should be, with the way the Tao is, so to speak, then we have non-suffering. We're in flow. We're going to experience that as more pleasant. But if we are outside of harmony, attempting to force our will, for example, being outside of harmony with the natural flow of nature, then we're going to experience disharmony, which I think of as suffering, which we could call punishment. But from that perspective, it's not punishment, it's just direction.
There's a lot we can say about karma, about the different traditions, what they do with it, what they say about it. But I'm going to give you my final definition of karma and what it means in my life. That's all I can say. I can't say what it means to anyone else. I can't even say this is true. I don't know if it's true or not. I'm just can say this is what is true for me and works in my life. And it's something for you to consider and accept or reject. I believe that karma is love. I believe that God is love. I believe that karma is love. Karma is the force of the universal consciousness at work. I believe in conscious evolution. There are some of you who would reject evolution, but if you could see and accept conscious evolution, evolution that is consciously driven by God, and whatever you define God, you define it any way you want. I define it as the universe is conscious and evolution is moving towards perfection in nature. And karma is that force that directs nature. So when there needs to be a mountain range, uh, erosion is karma. It's love moving things towards perfect beauty, towards perfect selfness. A tree should be exactly the tree it should be. And as it grows and becomes that best tree it can be, that's karma, the karma and its love guiding that tree. And sometimes we look at trees and you think, boy, that's a really messed up tree. Well, you looked at it and you stopped and you thought about it and you gave it consideration. So that tree was being the perfect tree. And so karma is at work in everything, the rocks around us and the trees, the rivers, the sky, the storms. That is nature, nature's love guiding us towards a perfect world and life. And the tools it uses are sometimes unpleasant. The storms that create floods, that mold the valleys, is unpleasant. We think of it as unpleasant. That's just a thought we assign to it. It's a judgment we make. It's not true, but we think of it that way. And hardship in our life, we think of that as unpleasant, but it's molding us. It's guiding us. One of my favorite quotes in the whole world is, "There's no reason to have fear or worry. The force that guides the stars guides you and me too." Karma is the loving force, and it uses some unpleasant means, and we don't like the unpleasantness that it uses, but that's just what it takes. It guides us into our perfect one selfness of what I should be and what I should move on to become. Karma is loving growth. The force that guides the stars guides me too. So I see karma as the force, the loving guiding force. And it uses agony and ecstasy to guide us forward. And I don't like the agony, but I love the ecstasy. And you can't get one without the other. You've got to have them both. And I've had both, and you've had both.
I just want to say what a difference it makes inside to view it that way. So, for example, let's say someone causes us harm. Instead of saying, karma's a bitch, you're going to get what you deserve. A sense of even maybe the same sentiment, but with a different perspective of, may love bestow upon you that which is going to correct your path. That's so different. And I think that actually helps the person who maybe was harmed in the process. And then I think about the exam in life, Bob, and how our own karma, our own agony can be the thing that we can examine to say, okay, love, what do you want me to know? Given that I'm hurting pretty badly right now, what can I examine here? What's your message? What's your wisdom?
Very, very much. So I'm reminded of the Chinese farmer story, a story that we both love.
Yes.
And I just see it as karma. And at each step, things looked good and bad, but they were never either. They were just loving guidance. So the Chinese farmer story is this. There was a farmer in China, and he had a horse, and his horse and a son. And his horse was really important because, it was the most valuable thing he owned, and it kept the farm going. It kept them in food, and on and on and on. Well, one day they woke up, and the horse had run away. The horse was just gone. And his neighbors came by and said, "Oh my goodness, this is horrible. Your horse has run away. How are you going to take care of your farm? How are you going to earn money? Oh, this is just horrible." And he thought about it for a bit. "Well, I'm not sure. Let's wait and see what happens." And so the next day, the horse returns, and it was a magnificent stallion of a horse. That's why he loved it so much. And it had brought back a whole herd of horses. No, the neighbors came by and said, "Wow, what a fantastic good luck this is." And he said, "Yeah, it does seem like it, doesn't it? But I'm not sure. Let's just wait and see what happens next." And the next day, his son is out breaking the horses because now they've got a whole herd of horses. And so his son is thrown and breaks his leg. And how's he going to take care of his farm with his son having a broken leg? So all the neighbors come in and say, "Oh, more terrible. You must be a very bad person for all these bad things to keep happening to you. What's wrong with you?" And he says, "Boy, I don't know, but I'm just not sure about what you're saying. Let's wait and see. We'll see how this goes. I think it's going to be all right." And then the next day, the emperor has declared war on a neighboring group, and our soldiers come in and take every young man in the entire village. They go off to war, and the day after that, they're all in a big battle and they're all slaughtered. There's not another young man left in this entire village. However, this Chinese farmer's son is still there because he had a broken leg, which is well on its way to mending. And so the point of the story is, you don't know what karma is. You don't know what's good or bad. I have no clue. And one of the things I've done in my life is tried to stop judging if things are good or bad. Each one of these things seemed like really terrible things. And each of them, all of a sudden, there was something good. And neither does the story mean that something good always follows something bad, because that's not true. Good things happen to bad people, and bad things happen to good people. And sometimes it doesn't seem just, it seems terrible. And sometimes after the course of your life, you look back and you think, that still seems pretty unjust. Well, that's just what this lifetime was about. Next lifetime, hopefully, it will be all about justice. The Stoics, one of my favorite philosophical systems, have something they call amor fati. Amor means love, fate means fate. Love fate. When your horse gets stolen, love that. See the loving hand of karma in all of your life, and that attitude will almost certainly bring good things in the long run. But maybe not. No guarantees. There are no guarantees in life.
Really powerful stuff. Everything from being unassuming, staying curious, having trust, having surrender, having detachment, and really taking a perspective of whatever happens, I am going to accept it and embrace it and be curious.
So I want to leave you with a quote that wraps up what I believe about karma. This is a quote from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. "The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. Karma guided them. And so that is what I wish for myself. That has been my wish for myself for a very long time. Sometimes I haven't liked it, but it's worked, I think. And that's my wish for you as well, my friends. So, folks, if you got anything out of this, some strange ideas, some ideas that you loved, maybe some ideas you hated, we want to hear from you. What did you really think, and what should have we left out? What's important that we forgot? Work out among yourselves your ideas. You know, this is not a two-person channel. This is hopefully a thousands of persons channel, and your input is extremely important. If you got anything out of the video, then maybe tell some of your family and friends. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit that thumbs up button, and we'll talk to you on the next video.
Bye-bye.
Bye.